Right. Alright, welcome to the Casey Catch-Up. I seem to be making a habit of this, but doing a podcast while driving in a car seems like a good use of our time. But today, I guess after the announcement that I'm working with Code Foils now, I'm here with Code Foils. What are you even? What do you call yourself? Designer?
I don't know.
I'm with Marcus Tardrew.
Yeah.
Mr. Code Foils himself.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so
1/3 of 1/4 of.
yeah, exactly.
Got used to saying fourth now.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna basically just go through, I guess, the process of the design and stuff that is the reason that we're happy to be releasing what we are releasing, because there's been like a year worth of R&D that Ben, Marcus and Dan have been doing, involved CNCs, involved lots of research on foil sections. But yeah, so we're going to go through all that and why the foil feels the way it does, and why this foil, the 850S, why that's the first one we're releasing, and I guess the story about that. So Marcus, do you want to talk us through how the design process started? Like what you were looking for, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I was looking for a wing that ideally I could do everything well on. As in, everything I do is prone, wing and downwind. And I really think a good all-round wing should be capable of doing those three things at a pretty high level. And obviously a dedicated downwind wing might go faster. Depends what your goals are downwind, if you just want to surf downwind or go fast. And our goal with the first wing was that all-round wing. Easy to use performance, I guess, was what I was hoping to unlock in a foil, and further sort of intermediate to advanced rider, and something really balanced. I didn't want it to be too front foot, and I didn't want it to be mega back foot. Like, yeah, there's probably obvious brands out there that are either way.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there because I think we should talk about other brands. I think it doesn't have, like, there's no, like, to me, GoFall's the most front-footed, and I love that feeling when I was riding for GoFall. And then I'd say Lift, from what I've tried, has been super back-footed, just as becomes stock. I know Zane tunes his to make it feel a bit more neutrally to, like, front-footed even. You can tune a foil to get that out of it. But yeah, the neutral feel, I think, is what I've noticed with the 850 S. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. But yeah, that neutral feeling.
Yeah, well, that was the goal. And you can shim it to get other feels. I guess that was sort of to be somewhere there, and then you can tune it to feel a little different either way.
Yeah.
It's another foil that likes to be pretty far forward in the box, which I personally like. And I think a few of the other foils that were placed back in the box are sort of moving in that direction too.
Yeah, interesting. Like, for me, it's not that far off, like, the advanced fuse from Axis.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, that makes sense, I think, when you look at the two designs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the reason I like that feeling is because it's kind of your pivot point if you think about what the foil has to turn around, and we don't create drive in the same way we do with fins on a surfboard. So I think it's nice, personally. I like having that pivot point further under your legs rather than behind you back leg, and it's just personal opinion, and that's why some people might not like it and they'll like something else different. You know, I feel like foiling's a very personal sport that you're gonna gel with something better than something else quite often. The other thing I was really looking for was stiffness in the setup, not just the mast. I feel like I didn't really want too many moving parts, so fewer connections. I reckon we must have sort of deliberated what direction we were going to go down as far as setup with the foil for so long, and it was so hard to choose, but we eventually went with that front wing with the fuse connected into it, coming to the conclusion that the relationship with that front wing and mast needs to be really tight and stiff. So no moving parts there, just the socket like you see with Lift and F1, Cabrini, heaps of brands now. Didn't reinvent the wheel at all. We sort of, which I guess was the beauty of coming into foiling now, we've sort of seen what works and what doesn't.
And the pros and cons.
We kind of looked at what worked and what doesn't, and seen what we could improve in those things as well. And our fuse, every little part of the kit was designed in a certain way, even down to just having all the bolts along the bottom.
Yeah.
Just for rigging up, make it easy. Why not make it easy? I don't want one bolt on the top of the fuse and the rest on the bottom. And durability, obviously, it almost went hand in hand with bulking up certain parts for stiffness. You're going to get durability. And ease of putting it together, everything. Like I just wanted to make a foil that I wanted to use and rig up, and when I say I probably should say we, like there's more than me, it's not just me, but we all foil, and we've all been foiling for ages, and that's where we've landed with what we've got. So when, I don't know if you'll put pictures or whatever over this chat, but everything that you'll see with our set is on purpose. Everything you feel is on purpose, like the stiffness of it, how connected everything feels, I think, is what I get from it. And that's all from certain things in the design, and I'm hoping that everyone feels it as well. With some things we had to sacrifice maybe a more aerodynamic shape to get stiffness, but we made that call. Like the fuselage in particular, I guess, is one of the bits that is pretty beefed up.
It's chunky.
It's chunky, and it's a bit squarer than some of the others. And I think it's all cool. It all works. This is just our version. I'm not saying other stuff's wrong, but we wanted that to be very stiff, very strong, and that relationship to the front wing, we want it to be quite beefy. And what it sacrificed in aero, I think we gained in feedback from the foil, which you kind of gain back that efficiency from the ease of riding high and things like that.
No, definitely. I guess I've now used it probably 4 prone sessions now and 3 wing sessions, and downwinded it once. And for a surf wing, super, not I guess fast isn't the best, it's just super efficient, compared to what I have been using. light is like the foil itself isn't physically light. The mast isn't super light. It's not as heavy as some of the other, like, I guess, higher modulus, like new, like super stiff masts. But it's not the lightest either. But the foil, like the aeroplane itself, is light. And the stiffness, or like connectedness, I guess I'd call it. It's like more than stiffness. I feel it's all really connected, and that's the, I guess, the beefier or chunkier sort of look to it. Like something that I noticed straight away when I looked at the foil, the whole setup, was the mast at the bottom was pretty chunky. Like it was from the mast to the base plate was like there's a bit going on there. There's a bit of material there which
yeah, for sure. And I think also, I think that chunkier fuse, it's a bit deeper, it's squarer, it's got bigger shoulders on it than most.
Yeah.
And so it's creating a lot of stiffness around that joint, the mast joint.
And that's what you're saying for like the benefit coming into the, creating a foil setup now rather than having the stiffness and connectedness with the higher aspect wings matching to a mast that was designed a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's a huge benefit coming into it now with knowing what you've got to match it with foil wise.
I think the one thing that Downwind pointed out early on was how important the stiff mast was, and it's only really probably in the last year or so people have realised how important it is. But also foils have got more high aspect, so it's really shown the weakness in some of the flexier masts. I guess like as the sport evolves and the foils evolves, then so of the rest of the setup that has to go with it, because it's probably under different stresses that we're going faster.
We're going faster now. We're using higher aspect wings, so the load on the mast is more than it has ever been.
I guess if you take the 1300, which is like such a good wing to learn to downwind on, that's such a massive span. So we're going to put that under way more load than the foils that like me and you learned to downwind on. Which were under a metre in span. So.
And they were thicker. Like the foil section themselves were thicker. And now everything's getting thinner.
So flexing the wings as well.
It's happening more and more.
It's going to be a thing.
So that's why I think that's a pretty big point of difference I found with the code stuff straight away. Even the way it goes together, and something I love personally is the tail being on the bottom. That's something that I actually was lucky enough to test with Alex over in Maui when I was riding for GoFoil. Literally the same tail wing with a pedestal flipped one way or the other, and I was able to test what I personally liked better. And what I found was with the tail on the bottom of the fuse, so close to the waters, the bottom of the ocean when you're foiling, it basically felt like you were making the most of the entire surface of the wing, whereas when it was on top of the fuse, the wing itself was like less surface area to push off because the fuse was limiting its efficiency. And I mean, Marcus, like you sort of thought of it a different way. We chatted about it earlier. But
that didn't actually come into my head at all with the design. But we tried a few things, and the bottom mount, I guess, breaches less when you're banking hard or
going down a huge wave.
And because
seen Matt Davies breach the tail wing a bit, like on huge wild waves, and his tail comes out and his front wing's still in the water. So that's
and then there's the angles of the tails and stuff, and that's all stuff that we figured out with prototyping. on the machine at home.
Yeah, we should go into that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, like, you just wanted all the screws on the bottom too, right? That was...
Well, if the performance was going to be better on top, we would have put them on top.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it wasn't, in our opinion.
Yeah. For the setup, for our setup. Yeah.
There's a lot of feel that probably goes into what we do, because we're all foilers and we do all the types. So we still do the stuff on computers, you know, but I don't think it tells the full story until you get it in the water. And it's kind of like maybe surfboard shaping, where, you know, there's guys who design boats on computers and it tells you certain things, but there's different things going on when you're on a foil, when you are on a wave, whether you're on a surfboard. It's different to driving, to designing a boat hull, I guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same with foiling, because, you know, you got things like tip breaches and all sorts of strange stuff that are hard to mimic in a computer simulation.
Yeah.
So
we were chatting about earlier, like, if foils were so similar to like aeroplane, like airfoils, if hydrofoils were so similar to airfoils, then we'd probably all be using more or less the same thing. Or depending on what you value, because everything's compromised. But there's like a hydrofoil is different to an airfoil because of tip breaches.
Yeah, well, yeah. Even not so much the foil sections, but the plan shape and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I reckon that's what's cool about it.
Yeah. Well, and there's no right or wrong, which is kind of cool too.
That's right. Yeah, and that's the thing. What you do well somewhere, maybe it's sacrificing something somewhere else. It's the same with almost anything. So it's finding that happy medium, I think, and yeah, I guess, like, once again, we've settled on something we love to use, and might not be for everyone, but feedback's been good so far from a bunch of different types of foilers. But, you know, there's different conditions, different styles of foilers, different abilities. So yeah, it's probably all gonna be a different foil for each person. Yeah.
And different conditions and all that. But
yeah,
I guess, like, for the 850S, like, what was that? What do you reckon that's most similar to, in terms of, like, size and, like, size-wise? Like, because you were using lift and axis before.
Yeah.
So in terms of size, what do you see it close to? Because size isn't always the best, you know, measurement, because a foil section or area can change.
Yeah. I won't talk about size in area. I'll talk about how it feels. Yeah. And the foils I was using was lift just before code happened, and it feels like it's got more lift than a 120. So it probably feels like a wing that would be placed somewhere between a 120 and a 170. Maybe even a little closer to the 120 side of things, but it's definitely got more lift and probably a little bit more bottom end. But it feels probably similar, because it's going, you know, it gets placed in a similar spot in the box to a lift, so you need a board that will accommodate that, you know, forward boxes, I guess. Which is kind of becoming the norm now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of the goal, was to make a foil like the 120 I love, and I could own a 120 and do everything I do with that foil, which I thought was amazing. And I'd never had that before. I had a 120. I always had to have a downwind wing and a prone wing, maybe even a wing. So I was chasing that, I guess. That was that was a bit of a revelation for me when I got on the lift. Answering that question again.
Yeah, so we're just talking about what the 850S feels similar, like, so people know feel wise, and we're not going to talk sizes because I think sizes are misleading, like span or area or chord. It depends on more than that, foil sections and whatnot. But what does it feel like when you foil it? Like, what's it similar to? And you were saying lift 120 but a bit bigger, basically.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so I think I said somewhere between a 120 and a 170, but more towards the 120 end of things. Dan, who's in the company, he was using the 120, but he's probably a smidge heavy, and that this foil probably is just a bit more suited to him, whereas I could use the 120 for everything. And so yeah, it has a little bit more lift, and yeah, as far as
what about speed wise, do you reckon it's
pretty similar it seems like it's in the ballpark of the 120 downwind.
Yeah.
It's not really its intention. It's really fun to surf downwind, I think, because it has that, especially for people like Dan, a slightly heavier guy. Dan's 80
same weight as me
or something.
He's a bit lower than me.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
but he's not
for those guys it's probably better because they can carve and have that bottom end to back them up. And yeah, for me it's really good, and it's just it feels a little bigger than the 120 for me lift wise. Yeah, but we were sort of looking to build that wing that would be for the slightly heavier intermediate to advanced rider, which is we're happy with where it is for that.
For me, it kind of feels like it's in the ballpark of the 899, I guess, and I kind of group the 830 HPS in that same area, which again is kind of like the RS 1000 from GoFall. And then what else have I used? The Lift 120 for sure. I haven't used Unifor stuff much. I'm trying to think of what other brands I've used. The Armstrong feels, I'd say, similar to the 925 in terms of like how it feels, like the conditions I'd use it in the surf. But the 925 definitely goes faster, but doesn't have the low end. So like I would stall out when I was trying out the Armstrong stuff. I was stalling the 925 out a lot, pumping between waves, whereas I don't have that. And same with the 899, and a little bit the 120 had pretty good glide, but if I was under powered I'd stall out the 120, whereas I had a pump out today and she went like near some dolphins and I got some reverb from it. It was pretty cool. I didn't hit a dolphin, but like when they like kicked their tail, I felt it's like the turbulence that the dolphin was creating, and I almost came to a complete stop this morning, and then like pumped, and I was like full porpoise pumping, which is funny because I was next to dolphins, and I recovered where I would have normally. I expected to be stalling out and dropping down.
Yeah.
But I recovered from it, which I was super stoked on. It was like which is credit to the low end. It probably won't go as fast as the 925. Or maybe it will, I don't know. We haven't really been too focused on the speed of it. It's our all-round wing. And yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it's a good comparison, and it doesn't mean it's better than those wings. It's just different. It has a different bottom end for sure. But yeah, if you were going to try and just do just try to Ks under 2 minutes, then you'd probably go maybe possibly the 925 over it. Yeah.
But it depends what you want out of a foil.
Yeah. It's not all about speed, I think. One of the things that I've noticed is the ability for it to breach, like really, really well. Almost to a point that you feel like you're skimming along the top of the surface with the wing. And I was using the 75 centimetre mast, and when you get close to the surface and you get that gurgling feeling on foils I've used in the past, when you're there, it's kind of like too late to ever recover from that. Like it's kind of like, all right, brace for impact. But because the tips breach so well, I felt like even when you're close to the surface, it's still super stable. Not sure if that makes sense in the design aspect, but that's why I rely on Marcus for the design stuff I have for years for this Sonova stuff, and I just tell him what I like and he pieces it together. But the tips and just the stability of the foil in turbulence has been kind of mind-blowing to me, especially in the whitewater. Like you saw I did some whitewater hits that I would never have ever like considered, but because of the confidence I got in the turbulence, it almost feels like it sticks and pivots in the turbulence, which, you know, that's not something you would normally, it's not a way you'd explain a foil in turbulence normally. You know, it's ducking bronco normally. And this is in like Western Australian, like balmy juice. Like it's, especially today, it was pretty solid.
Oh, it was like
for foiling. Yeah. But solid sections. It was like barreling. Yeah.
No,
and it's as small as
a lot of power.
As small as Marg's gets probably, but but it was punchy. Some of those sets today. But yeah, so the design aspects, like I guess one of the things I like to think about, and I've talked about in the podcast before, like when you're designing a foil, what are you trying to achieve? How do you make something better? Like what makes a foil the best or good? You know, what aspects are you trying to hit? And you've spoken about like the stall speed being relatively low. We were discussing this earlier, and like I was chatting to Marcus last night. I think it was, and I was like saying, I don't think foils have come that far in the last 5 years for foiling on a wave, just pure surf foiling, no pumping. And because I think we'd all agree that foils have gotten much better at pumping, and the efficiency of a foil is huge, but the ability for someone to ride a wave to the best of their ability in terms of carbs, I think hasn't changed that much. And Marcus sort of said, well, think about this and maybe explain what you explained to me. So I think you kind of put me back in my place.
No.
In a good way. Like,
I disagreed. I think they've come a long way. Because we brought up a few of the wings that we surfed in the past, and I don't think any wing really breached a tip well. Maybe 3 years ago. Which I think is really important, because when you surf hard, it's just going to happen. I mean, you watch any video with a really good foiler, even if they're using a longer mast. I don't know what length Mr. Bennett's uses, but his tips are always out. You were using the short one today, and they're always out. Whether you mean it or not, it's going to happen when you surf. So it's nice that it doesn't make you crash anymore. Yeah, and my argument is always like, well, if you're breaching the tips, you're probably turning too hard for that foil itself. But for sure, especially with a shorter mast, a tip breach means you can turn harder. And there's no doubt about that. So and if you can turn harder and surf harder without fear of that,
you can put the foil in a more critical position. So
and I think it's, even though it's one thing, it's a pretty major thing. With surfing.
I guess the other thing on my argument for that was like, think about like the original kite, for example, like the Go Foil kite with the turned down tips. If you were breaching a tip, you were actually a long way past what we are now breaching tips, because it was curved down. So if you were to actually breach that tip with the tips much lower, and to breach that tip, like you're proper stuffed, because not only is like the middle of the foil will be out of the water as well. Those now foils are much flatter, and that's why I think the tips are breaching more and better. But and there's limitations as well. So you obviously can only bank over so far till your board's in the water and your mast is fully out and stuff like that. So it's finding that that was one of the bigger things for me. Like, breach a tip but not lose stability until like the last year or two. I hadn't really felt a foil that breached a tip and held its stability really well. Like, I'm not big on like the photos of people breaching tips because I think they're a bit showy. You know, it's like, how functional is that even? Especially like when it's flat water and they're like breaching a tip. It's like, oh my god. Obviously, it's a photo, or it's a cool video that it looks sick. But I'm like, yeah, but how functional is it? And I guess it is functional because you can lean over harder. But maybe just use a longer mast and then don't breach as much of the tip out. And the reason I always did that was because there is instability when you breach too much of your tip out.
Yeah.
It like gets wobbly to a point.
For sure. There'll be conditions where you just have to use a longer mast.
Yeah.
Like winging, quite often you're going to have chop on the face of your wave and stuff. So there's definitely... Yeah, I only use a 75, but, you know, for winging, I probably wouldn't mind a longer one.
Yeah.
And maybe even prone when it's deep enough, which it usually isn't where I go. But the cool thing is I can use a 75 and turn with the tips out, so
kind of makes it feel like an 80.
Yeah, well, if the foil didn't do that, I guess, like they didn't a few years ago, which is, I guess, more obvious for me living in WA where the shorter mast comes into play a lot. Like, now the foils that exist that do that well is a bit of a game changer because we can not sit on the bottom and use a 75 mast but still turn hard if we need to. Not that I really turn that hard on a pro, but on a wing all the time it's the tips are coming out, and I like the noise it makes too. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. And you feel cool. You feel like a pro foiler.
Like all the photos,
yeah,
right?
Like yeah.
I'll be doing backflips in no time.
That's it.
Yeah. The other thing I reckon, and this I can't disagree with, is like surf foils have gotten way better at whitewater rebounds. Like, I remember when I would try whitewater rebounds back in 2017 or 2018, it was like you do it once accidentally, you're like, I am never going near turbulent whitewater again. And now I'm like fully searching it out. Like today I was looking for those big sections and trying to rebound where people like at the takeoff section, I guess. And that's one of the major. That's what I found this 850S does really well. It's so stable. I've said it like probably 10 times to you this trip. It's so stable in the whitewater. It almost feels like it pivots around the mast, and the turbulence like doesn't affect the foil itself. So that's pretty sick to me. I even done like I did like a floater yesterday.
Yeah. Like
through the whitewater, through like the breaking wave, and like almost came off the back of it, slammed back down, and came back. Like it was. I've never done that before, or felt that before.
Yeah, I don't really prone foil with you that much, so I just was like, it probably does that all the time. So
no.
It was cool to hear your comments about how it felt through that. But I mean, that's also might only be applicable to 5% of foilers. Yeah. That feeling. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be something that people are going to have to try and decide if they like it. We probably talked it up.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, and I guess I feel like that comes from the stability of the wing and the stability of it in turbulence, which is a wingtip breach.
Yeah.
Like, so that's stability in turbulence, I feel. Because if a tip is breaching, the wing is in turbulence. And then if you're going in white water, the wing's in turbulence too. So, and then same with the height. When you get high on your mast and your wings almost, starts gurgling with water, that's turbulent too. So I just feel like this 850 is really good at in turbulent water. Which
like reconnects.
Yeah, reconnects well. Yeah, exactly. Like relaminates. Also, is that the word?
Yeah, I guess.
Know. Yeah, like the water wraps around it again. Air bubbles don't stick to it. Okay. Yeah, that was just on a tangent about surf foils and what makes them good. But let's go into the R&D process over the last year or so that you, Dan and Ben have been going through, and like I know got a CNC machine. Do you want to go through that sort of stuff? Pros and cons.
When we decided we were going to make foils, we got someone to make us. Our first foil was a tail wing, and we had a cut and figured that it was just going to be cheaper to buy our own machine. So we did. And it came in every single bit you could possibly imagine not put together. So we put that together over a few months, wired it up, then figured out how to use it. So that was a process in itself. This has been a massive journey, but and then learning the like CNC in itself. Obviously, people do that for a job, so learning that was an experience. A lot of failure, but we got there, and then we did all our prototypes on the machine before committing to getting molds and samples cut in China, which was awesome because we could cut a tail wing and use it that day. And we did a bunch of tail wings, and me and a couple of the guys in Perth used exactly the same equipment, so we had the same board. Like I could get ready on one of my boards, same as the board I was using, same mast, everything, and just swap gear on the water with just a different tail, and it was really amazing. It was perfect, and
just no other way to test really. I don't think, like in terms of
and not having a single thing different.
Yeah,
it was awesome, and it was fun. It was hard work, but fun, and yeah, I guess that's how we came to the foils that we'll be releasing first. And the mast was designed, and we had the mold cut and tested it all. Sorry, I'm just about to figure out where to finish. This guy would
let us in.
Cut it off. Just going to cut this Porsche off. Bounce Bay, that's us. And so we designed the mast. Was a little bit of a different approach, and we were going to commit to getting that made in China and do that through trial and error with proper layups and everything done in pre-preg and in their ovens and stuff. And so that one came about a bit longer, but we had the aeroplane figured out and fuse lengths, which we cut G10 fuses as well as tails and front wings, and ended up with the result. We did all sorts of weird stuff, like front wings out of ply and carbon, G10 that had been split up with stringers in it, carbon layered unidirectional stringers to get it stiff enough for front wing forces, I guess, and 3 different length fuses, which we ended up deciding were the 3 that were needed for the range, and
small, medium, large.
Yeah. Oh shit! There's ducks on the road. Come on, ducks.
Dash them across.
Get off the road.
Bloody wood ducks.
Crazy. We're in the middle of Perth. That's probably it. I was probably just and ahhing there at the end.
No, it's just that was fuses, and then tails, like tail sizes too.
Yeah, the tails was interesting because we did a bunch of different sizes. Once we found one that we liked and made sure that they worked in different sizes and all that. And we kind of came to a bit of a issue doing higher aspect, thinner foils with the flex with G10. So we started bagging them in carbon, which then obviously you lose a little bit of the exact design that you cut on the CNC. But it made them stiff enough to use, but still not ideal. Kind of enough to give you a feel of what was working, and
but having to factor
even the one that we are releasing was quite good in G10, because we've been working on already the next range of tails, which is different. And but yeah, then when we got the carbon one, it was unbelievably different. Even though it was exactly the same design, the stiffness in the full carbon tail, it was cool. It still had the same glide and like efficiency, but you can feel the stiffness when you pump and carve, I guess, and put a little bit more load under it. So that was pretty interesting, and
it's cool to understand the limitations of G10.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go to uni to design foils, so it's just been trial and error. But it's cool because that's how you learn, I guess. And like we were saying, foils are different to other things because of the weird stuff they do at certain times. And
I liked how when we were chatting earlier, you were saying how like an aeroplane wing will always be under the same pressure, I guess. It's always in the air. It's not half in water and half in air, unless you're really low. You don't want to be that low on a plane.
Yeah. If your wing on a plane goes in the water, something's going very down. Get out, eject.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been the process, I guess. It was probably a long explanation to it.
CNC. That's super interesting to me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was very testing for us, not having a clue how to operate a CNC machine and getting to the point where we could be confident enough to start cutting G10. And it's cool. I mean, we'll be doing it forever now, hopefully. And well, yeah, for sure, ever. Even if code doesn't work out, we'll be making our own foils. That's our passion now, I guess. We want to make foils we can use. That's the whole point of the business.
Yeah.
And I guess that if we do that, then hopefully other people will like using it too, but not necessarily.
I just thought of this question. I haven't prepped you for this one, but some of the conditions I hear you complain about usually involve a bit of seaweed.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe in the future you'll come up with something a foil that can go through seaweed. Ribbon weed.
Yeah. I don't know, that one stumped me.
Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah, the weed.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. But it is interesting. Some foils do foil through, hang on to weed better than others. I don't know if it's just that better bottom end or what, but yeah, I mean, not that that's something that you're really designing a foil around. It's probably
a weed foil. Maybe that's something in the future. I think there's something in that.
Yeah.
Less span, catch less weed. Do you reckon? I don't know.
I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah,
I don't like weed.
Yeah, weeds are nice.
I just go winging when the weed gets bad. The boys think that I'm not loyal, but which I'm not. I love downwinding. It's still what I'm most passionate about, but I'm not most passionate about downwinding with weed, so I go winging.
Blast through the weed.
Yeah, you got an engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something we discussed actually, like something that I'm stoked to be a part of, like the R&D process, obviously like heavily with code foils, is that the way to test foils, like I think winging's a good way to get a feel for a foil, but it's different to like surf foiling and downwind foiling in that like we're not sailing when we downwind foil. We're actually tapping into the energy below and generating our own speed from pumping or placing ourselves in a good position. You see some brands talk about having like, America's Cup designing foil designers, but I don't think it's really that relevant to surf foiling or downwind foiling because we're not under power. You know what I mean? Like it's a different. We're doing different. It's still a foil, and it's a foil in the water, but we're not sailing, I guess. And it's something I talk about with my coaching. Like people talk about, oh, the conditions were this and the wind was this strength. I'm like, yeah, but what was the size of the swell and what direction was it? And what period was it? Because the period of of an ocean swell or a swell in a bay, wind swell in a bay, is far more important than wind swell, than the wind strength, in my opinion. Because the wind can be blowing 30 knots for 2 minutes, and it doesn't mean that there's going to be good bumps straight away. Like, it takes longer than 2 minutes for a fetch to create good enough conditions. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is you can still downwind when there's no wind. We're down swelling. You know what I mean? Like, we're going down the coast with wind and waves. We can still downwind without wind. Yeah,
I guess, like, something to probably point out is, though, that those certain foils that are designed by certain people, they'll be amazing with something. Like, they
sure.
just will be different. And we're talking a lot about downwind because we're passionate about it. But
we've branched out on this podcast. All we talk about is downwinding. We talked about surf foiling heaps.
And you know that those other foils will suit other things better. They'll do something better that ours doesn't. But we've designed around what we want to use once again, and I'm sure that's where those brands who have gone down that path are designing foils for what they think is relevant. And
it doesn't make it right or wrong. I guess my point was, we're testing it in everything. Like, I love testing stuff by flat water paddling it up, because to me that is a completely controlled environment where you've got flat water, you've got your board, you've got yourself, you know what you can paddle up. And I guess the biggest variable is probably your own fitness and strength, in order to get it going. But if it's flat water, like I've said before, like, testing stuff downwind is so hard to do because every single bump is different, and in a minute, like, even when you're next to each other, it's different, because you could be on a good bump and I could be on the edge of that bump. And if you're up higher on that bump and I'm lower on that bump, then therefore you're going to be going faster. So then you'll feel like your foil is going better than mine, even though it could just be the position that you are on the bump. Like, maybe you're reading it better than me. Mm-hmm. So, but flat water is uniform. You're controlling all the variables as best you can, I believe. And then, like I said, the best way to test downwind is swapping with someone out in the water in the same conditions. But even that's not perfect because conditions change very quickly.
And it needs to be tested over
long time,
hundreds of kilometres, thousands even, to figure out the patterns. Because, like I said, just being side by side change. But
also, what I was going to say was, like, we also test it by winging. Like, we're not discounting. We're not saying it's bad to be testing it under power, like under wing, like wing power or towing power or whatever it is. It's good to test all the different bits of it. But I think I put the biggest emphasis on what I'm doing, which is downwind foiling and surf foiling mainly. And even when I'm winging, I'm free winging or flagging, so I'm still surf foiling more than anything else. Yeah. So it's, to me,
I think this discussion we had off camera was, I was just saying how I really like the people involved so far. We're all in such different places. Like, I prone today, but I haven't proned in ages because I live in Perth. So I wing heaps. So it's cool because I do a lot of testing on the downwind and wing. You and Ben will do a lot of stuff prone. So it's cool. It's not just me and Dan in WA testing stuff that way. Not like just wing and downwind, because obviously the prone is so important to us, and I would love to do more of it. I just can't.
You might need to get into some more wake thieving, mate.
Yeah.
How do you reckon the 850 your dog start?
I haven't done it, but a mate of ours, Belly, has.
Yeah.
And he said it was different. He didn't test it back to back with anything, but he dock started, no problem. He's a freak.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's impressive.
Yeah, well, he dock starts at 925, which is probably not something that most people do either.
That's actually more impressive.
Yeah, yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
So it probably, I didn't even, it was like asking you how a board went. I didn't take much from it. I was like, he's good, so what he thinks probably isn't relevant to the majority of the population.
He's skillful enough to make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be fine, but I would say in general it wouldn't be great, and you'd be looking towards a bigger size, which hopefully wouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, so I guess what's the plan in terms of the range? Because obviously there's just only really one foil at the moment, and step us through that maybe.
Yeah. The molds are getting cut for the other sizes, so it's just really a waiting game to get them.
Bigger and smaller coming, I guess, is all we can really say. Don't want to under-promise, overachieve, I think, is the best way to be.
Yeah. We're so new to this in every way, like the business part of it, dealing with factories and stuff. So we've already got a really awesome relationship with the factory, and it's just a matter of making sure that the shops that end up getting involved, we can release at a certain date where everyone releases the same time, and we've got enough stock to do all that. So release dates are something that we're not going to talk about right now. We're figuring out as we go. It's definitely a bunch of foilers that have created a foiling business. It's not a bunch of businessmen that have created a foiling business. I guess is probably the best way to describe what's happening so far.
Feeling it out.
Yeah. So it's
has its pros and cons, no doubt.
Yeah, it keeps it exciting. That's for sure.
Well, we've just rocked up home, so I think that's a little insight into the 850 and the design and the R&D process. So thanks Marcus for getting on camera. I know you love it so much. I'm training him up. He'll get used to this. But thanks everyone for listening, and check out Code Foils because it's something that is new and exciting for us especially. So thanks for listening, and anything else you want to say, Marcus?
No, not really. I just think give it a go if you can.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, that's cool.
Yeah. If any shops want to get involved, hit us up. You know where to find us. But thanks for tuning in, guys. And if anyone wants to give them a go, we're going to try to get some demos out and about. But again, no promises on where and when and what time of year, but we'll be floating about with stuff for people to try. So, stay tuned. There'll be plenty more coming.